I've tried and tested many habits over the last 10 years of my life. Most of them didn't really quite work out. These 10 made my life infinitely better. And if you try them, I promise you they'll do the same for you. The first is make an offer, even if you're not sure what you're really offering. See, what happens a lot of times in our lives is we tend to want to not make an offer because we fear rejection. We feel that people will say no to what we're about to ask of them. We feel that there is an unlikelihood that they will say yes. And especially when we are uncertain of what we are really creating and what we are really offering, we have a unconscious fear of being rejected. And none of us want to really get rejected. And because we don't want to get rejected, we make the fundamental error of not even trying. See, if you make more offers, you are going to get more no's. But the problem is not getting more no's, but the understanding what no's actually mean. Let me explain. So more likely than not, you have awareness right now. You're a person that has some sense of understanding of who you are. Every time you step into discomfort or a place where you're likely to get a no, you actually expand your awareness because now you go, oh, I understand what gets me a no. See, a yes is right at the edge of a no. So when you keep pushing for no's or keep pushing your growth by being uncomfortable, by making an offer again and again, what's happening really is your field of experience, your field of consciousness, your field of ability to get a yes increases. So while right now it may seem like a crazy idea to want to make an offer while you have no idea how to pull this off, if you really give it time, if you give yourself the ability to step in and make an offer even when it feels like that it's likely going to collapse on itself and you're going to get a no, it's a lot more likely that you will get a yes over time. Because every single no is a step forward towards a new growth edge, to a new awareness, to a new understanding of self, which is more likely to get you a yes and more frequent yes. So, if you are somebody that wants to completely change your life, lean into the no's, lean into making an offer even when you have no idea what you're really offering. Every time you'll push yourself to the zone of discomfort, every time you will get uncomfortable, all the no's that you will receive will prepare you for that inevitable yes. Now, the second habit will blow your mind because it sounds woo-woo. It sounds way too spiritual. And that is writing yourself a dream check. See, there was a story very popular. It happened on Oprah with this actor called Jim Carrey. Many, many years ago, he was on Oprah. And he was asked this question, hey, I've heard that you have this dream check in your pocket at all times. And Jim Carrey goes on to explain. He says, yes, I carry this dream check in my pocket. I've carried it for years. And this check says $10 million for acting services rendered. And for many, many years, I would look at that check every day. I will pull out my wallet, I'll take out the check, I'll look at the check, and I would go, I want this check. I want to have this check one day. And he kept dreaming and kept dreaming of having that check until one day he finally received that check on Thanksgiving Day for his movie Dumb and Dumber. Now, you may go, Ajit, I'm not Jim Carrey. You are not Jim Carrey. What are we talking about? We are not some phenomenal actor that has changed the way comedy was done and has flexibility in the face of a rubber band. And you would be right. But the idea is not that this is only available to Jim Carrey. It's available to everyone. And for that matter, I wanted to test it out for myself. I wanted to say, hey, could this really be possible? Is this really something that only Jim Carrey can pull off? Or is it possible for anyone and everyone that is in the world? So I went ahead and did this experiment. A few years ago, I wrote myself a $10 million check. Yes, literally a $10 million check. As I watched this video, I was like, I'm inspired. I want to get this check. And so I wrote myself a $10 million check. And as I write that check, I put it on the board that was right across the computer screen that I was looking at. So I would look at this check every single day. I had folded it, sometimes put it, carried around different parts of the world that I was traveling. But I kept reminding myself of this $10 million check. Well, earlier in 2024, as I was merging into a larger organization, my equity stake of that company was worth $10 million. And this habit of writing a dream check has been with me for years now. And every single time I've done it, it has created great outcomes for me, making me realize these dreams over several months or several years. And now, One may go, Ajit, that sounds like a pipe dream. It seems like lucky. How do you even have such a dream? Like, do you really believe in it? Well, the answers to all of those questions is yes and. Yes, you have to write a check. It doesn't have to be a $10 million check. It could be a $10,000 check. But you have to write a check to yourself that you can then chase, that you can then dream of. It's not about being money hungry. It's about being understanding that a lot of your dreams will come true only when they're clear in your head. A dream check is not because it's a dream check, it's because it makes it clear of what is your ambition. It makes it clear for you what you need to do to be able to create that dream check. So my invitation to you is write a check. It could be 10,000, it could be 1 million, it could be 10 million, it could be 100 million. It doesn't really matter. Till the time you write down the check and put your commitment out to the universe of saying that I am going to create this outcome for myself in my life. Which brings me to the third habit. The third habit is start with the biggest domino today. See, one of the biggest mistakes we make as creators, entrepreneurs, coaches is that we forget that we have only a finite amount of energy every single day. You wake up with a reservoir of energy. You're really excited because you slept really well, and you wake up with an infinite amount of energy. You maybe have chugged a coffee, you're ready for the day. And you think you will have the same amount of energy through the day, but you don't. Most of us will deplete energy every point in the day, right? So, for example, if you have kids, you might be getting your kids ready and you might have a little meltdown in there. Oh, you'll deplete some energy. You might go to the gym and you regain some energy, but at the same point in time, maybe a client meeting doesn't go the way you want it to and you deplete some more energy. So, every single day, you have a reservoir of energy that depletes through the day. And as your energy is depleting, your capability of doing a task also reduces. Living your life efficiently, living your life most productively in a high performance state is not about time. It's actually about energy. It's not about how much time you give to a work, but how much energy you give to a task. It what defines the success of the task. The old predicament of 9 to 5, and because you work 12-hour days, you are more productive, falls apart when it comes to intellectual work. You are an intellectual worker, most likely. That effectively means you're using your mind to create things that don't already exist. And because of that, you need the greatest mind power that you will have through the day. And more likely than not, it is right in the morning. So when you start your day and you just do some mundane tasks like checking your email, replying to a couple of messages, you're using your highest level of energy to the least amount of impact you can have that day. Instead, if you switch around and do the biggest item of the day first, it'll get the maximum energy and probably will give you the maximum outcome that you needed that day for that day to be successful. So ask yourself, what's the biggest domino I can work on today? And if you can work on that, what kind of impact would it have? Now, here's a way to really analyze which would be your biggest domino. See, most of us go for what is urgent first, right? But what we don't realize is, especially when somebody else assigns an urgent task to us, is often is not important. See, urgent doesn't mean important. Urgent just simply means somebody needs your attention right now. But you have to qualify if the task that you are doing right now, is it urgent and is it important? Most of us end up doing tasks that other people want from us. This is when you're replying to emails as first thing in the morning or messages as the first thing in the morning. You are most likely responding to an urgent requirement from somebody else that may not be important to you. Now, sometimes we make a mistake of going for what's most important. It's not also about what's most important that must be done first. What must be done first is what's the most urgent and most important and moves the needle most, right? It's sometimes not a perfect blend. It sometimes would be urgent and important, but doesn't move the needle. You don't have to do that first. Do the task that will move the needle first. You're not going to die tomorrow. So you don't have to do things that feel urgent and wrecks your nervous system. You do things that give you longevity. You do things that give you long-term growth, long-term success. And if you focus on them first, what you will find is over time, your urgent and important tasks reduce because what you're building are systems. What you're building is something that is more sustainable. What you're building is something that yields results year after year after year. So always ask, what's the biggest domino I can work on today? What's the biggest impact I can have in my work today? What's the biggest impact I can have that will lead me to have my dream check? If the task that you're doing does not lead to your dream check, if the task that you're doing doesn't lead to any real outcome, but just feels like a quick dopamine hit that gets you to feel that you did something, don't do that task. Only do tasks that move you forward. Which brings me to my fourth habit. The fourth habit is solve the problems that move the needle. The rest can burn. This is a difficult pill to swallow for most entrepreneurs, more creators, most coaches. And that's because we feel that nothing in our business should be going wrong. We have this weird infatuation, weird kind of love with our businesses where we feel everything should always be perfect. Here's the truth about building businesses. Most things are going to be imperfect when you are doing a business. Most things are not going to roll out the way you want them to roll out in your business. What you can do and what you must do is you must see what's the right problem to solve right now that will move my business the furthest. What's the right problem to solve right now that will move my relationship the furthest? What's the right problem right now that will make me a better speaker, a better author, a better coach, whatever it might be? But always look for the right problems. And the other problems, they can just be there. You will not be able to solve them. See, when we try to solve all of the problems, we end up solving none of them because our focus, our attention, our energy is never really on one thing and solving it really well. Any great problem, any problem that will really move your business forward requires time, energy, space. And all of them are limited in our day, right? There's only those many hours you're going to work. There's only that much energy you have. There's only that much space you can do, and only that much investment you can make in your business. That effectively means that after a point, all you are doing is thinking that you can solve all the problems, burning great energy in that thinking process and ruminating process, but you're not really actually doing anything. So my invitation for you is to, instead of trying to see, hey, how can I solve all of these different problems that I see in front of me, say, which is the most important problem that I can solve that will move the business furthest? And if I can solve that problem, that's more than enough for me for now. And as you fix one greatest problem at a time, you'll find that you'll end up with a great business. So instead of thinking about how many problems I can solve in my life, in my business, just think about what's the greatest problem. Which problem, when you solve, gives you the greatest bang for the buck, and work on that problem first. For business, there's a really clear filter that I have, right? So the number one priority problem that you always solve in your business is something that's money related. Either whatever problem you're solving needs to increase your revenue or profit, depending on what is your measure of success for your business. But that's the number one problem that you solve. So if I was today to wake up and solve a problem in my business, I wouldn't worry about anything else. But does this make me more money? Does this increase the revenue of the business? Does it increase the profit of the business? Here's a reason why. You are an impact entrepreneur, most likely. You're somebody who wants to have a meaningful career, have a meaningful job, meaningful thing, meaningful business in the world outside. I'm with you. I'm the same. But what I've also found is the amount of impact I create is directly correlated to the revenue I make. If I'm not making more money, most likely I'm also not having a bigger impact. I just have found that to be true, that most impactful individuals are also the most financially successful people. Like, look around you. Ask the people that has had the maximum impact in your life, the coaches, the trainers, the educators, the speakers, the authors, the gurus, whatever you want to call them. They are usually wildly successful financially as well, which is why they've been able to have the greatest impact around them. So the number one problem that you solve always in your business, if you're having a revenue and profit problem, is to ask yourself, what I solve right now as a problem, does it increase my revenue or does it increase my profit? Right? If it doesn't do either of them, don't solve that problem for now. The second filter is it interesting? My writing is interesting too. The second problem to solve is it interesting? Because what I've seen is people like us, people like you and me, we lose interest in our business before we lose anything in the business because we are doing the same thing often, same way for many, many years. And so we lose interest. And when you lose interest, you don't want to really build that thing anymore. So second thing that you want to always see is the problem I'm solving, is it interesting to solve? If it's not interesting for you, if it's not stimulating either mentally or spiritually or physically for you, it might be that you will lose traction in about 6 months in your business or maybe a year in your business. And because it's too boring, it's too repetitive, it's not fun enough, you will actually lose the momentum that you could have in your business. Now, this interesting problem can often be solved by hiring the right team members, engaging them in your team, and making them real rock stars so that way they can do things that are interesting to them but maybe mundane to you at that point. And so you will still be able to continue your business while not getting bored by your business, right? Which brings me to the third thing that is something that we often forget is it fun? If your business is not fun, if you're not having a good time building it, it is a big possibility that you are going to give up on it. If it's too hard, if it's too difficult, if every day you wake up and you feel like you're running through a brick wall, breaking your head, it is a big possibility that you will quit on that business, if not in the first year, then the second year of business. And so I would highly encourage to always consider if the business that you're creating, if the life that you're creating, if it's fun, if it's actually interesting for you, it's easy enough. It is challenging, but easy enough that you're actually having fun with these challenges. And of course, that you're making money, that you're being profitable, that you are financially rewarded for the work that you've done, because it's a good measure to also understand if you've made meaningful impact in society. Which brings me to the fifth habit that I absolutely love, and I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for, and that is don't worry about your losses at the end of the day. Only celebrate your win. So at the end of the day, I would love for you to not worry so much about what went wrong, but worry more about or celebrate more what went right. And here's the reason why. I know the toxic positivity police would think that I have something fundamentally wrong wired in me, but what I've found to be true is that when we think about the negatives towards the end of the day, we end up continuing that spiral as the day ends. So let's say if I was ending my day and I was just looking at the negative, 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 I'll show up at my house with all that negative behavior. And then I would see the negatives in my wife and negatives in my kids and negatives of my lifestyle at that point. And that would throw me into further spiral. So as I go to sleep, I am sleeping thinking how the world is against me, how life is against me, how everything that I've done is just wrong at this point. Versus if at the end of the day, I end my work and say, wow, I want to celebrate these 5 things that I was able to do, or my team was able to do, or we get to celebrate today, right? As I review them, what tends to happen is I am more elevated. And because my mood is more elevated, my spirituality, my state of consciousness is more elevated, I go home with that higher state of consciousness. And because I'm going to home with a higher state of consciousness, I see my wife in a different light. I see my kids in a different light. I see my life in a very different light. And when I see them in a different light, they show up differently for me too. Now we are compounding positivity. Now we are compounding more love. We are compounding more positive emotions. We are compounding more consciousness in alignment with what we want to create in the world versus what we think is wrong with the world. This is also why I steer away from most news. This is also why I steer away from most gossips, because it's good for my mind and good for my soul and good for my real output to the world of me creating something more meaningful, more powerful, more useful to the world. So my invitation to you is, instead of reviewing what all went wrong today, review what all went right today. Make a list of items that went well so you can be in a more elevated state. Eventually, our lives are about how we show up to anything and everything. And if we can show up more elevated, it's more likely that we will contribute in a more positive, progressive way. And if we contribute in the more positive, progressive way, I think the world gets better, our lives get better, our realities get better. And why wouldn't we want to make all those things better in our life and around us as well? And I know some days might feel a little difficult. Some days you might feel like, I have nothing to celebrate. I just worked all day. I invite you to look behind the curtain. Even if it's a hard day, you can celebrate leaving a hard day. You can celebrate that you went through that hard day, did those difficult conversations, did those difficult tasks. There might be celebrations hidden in little things that were victories for you. Like, for example, I'm not saying this is you, but if, let's say, you end up yelling at your kids at some point in the day, if that day you didn't do that, you chose to be calm and patient and you were gentle with your kids, I say celebrate that. Celebrate that you told your partner you love them. Celebrate that you maybe called your parents. Celebrate that you spoke to a friend and was a good person to somebody in a cafe. It doesn't matter. There are things that are good that you do every single day because you're a good person. And because of that, I'm sure there's something that you can find to celebrate today. Which brings me to the sixth habit that has completely changed how I show up with energy in my day-to-day life. And that is Just eat smaller meals. What I found is that I'm 40 now, and as I have gone to this age, I've realized that there are certain things that make my energy better, and certain things that actually deplete energy from me. Too much coffee is bad for me. Bigger meals is bad for me. Eating after a certain time doesn't give me energy, takes away energy from me. Eating certain foods don't really resonate with me anymore. And so I've become really mindful of what I eat. And because I have become really mindful for what I eat, I've also become really mindful of how much I eat. My invitation is, irrespective of what age you are at, is to become mindful of it. Because you may find, like I have found, that eating a smaller meal, even if I have many of those through the day, is actually really good for my energy levels. I feel more energized because it seems like my body is not spending all its energy on consuming food or thinking about food. I have small, tiny meals that are spread through the day that also allow me to have my nutrition intake that seems most congruent with my physician, my doctor, and my biohacker friends. So, my invitation for you is to ask yourself, hey, what's the kind of meals that are giving me energy? And what are the kind of meals that after which I feel like maybe I should go to bed because they're probably taking energy from you? So, I invite you to eat smaller meals. Which brings me to the seventh habit, and that is read at least 20 minutes of a book, or at least listen to 20 minutes of a book every single day. Now, I want to put a caveat here. A lot of people go, Ajit, I listen to podcasts. No, it's not the same. See, a podcast is a conversation. It's a great piece if you're looking. It's almost like watching a talk show. Yes, you can learn maybe some things out of a talk show, but no information on that talk show is complete, detailed, sequential that will allow you to actually be an elevated person. Also, a lot of the times, the conversations that happen on a podcast have to be a little shallow because they are trying to keep a time container, a depth container of any conversation, because otherwise people will get bored listening to it. A podcast also often tends to be something that is reactive to your learning. It's not actually proactive. You're not defining what the topic of the next podcast episode is going to be. You're just listening to it. So you're getting information, but is that information useful to your life? I'm not certain of it. This is also why what has happened now is a lot of us get the dopamine hit of watching a quick reel or watching or listening to a quick podcast and thinking that we are learning, but we are not. We are simply getting information. Here is what I invite you to do differently. Instead of listening to podcasts, listen to books first. Books are designed to be sequential, in depth research material of somebody's work. Any author that is a reasonable author has taken at least a year of their life, at least a year of their life, to write a book. Doesn't matter how big or small. They have thought about it, they've written it, they've deleted most of it. Their editor then read it, and then they deleted most of it. Their publisher then read it and told them if it was a good book or a bad book. So by the time you get a book, there's at least a bare minimum of 5 to 10 people that have reviewed that book and said if this was good enough or not good enough. So the data, the information, the perspective is way, way, way more thought out than any podcast would ever have it. So my invitation is, yes, listen to podcasts for entertainment, but before you do that, invite yourself to a book, something that you can either read 20 minutes, actually read it. If you feel reading is too hard for you and can't get through it, listen to it. You can listen it at 1.5x or 2x if it is too slow for you as the book is being read. But I invite you to think of sequential learning versus just reactive learning that is thrown at you. Here's a way how you can choose what books to read. See, right now you have an identity, right? There is some version of you that exists. You are right now this person, and there is a very big likelihood that you want to be another identity or another person because this person may be fitter, maybe this is more pragmatic, more confident, has a better relationship, whatever. But there's a version of you that you seek. Most of us who are growth oriented individuals are like that. There's versions of us that we seek in the future that is a bigger, better, more congruent version of what we want to be. If you want to make more money, you are looking for a new identity. If you want to be a better coach, you're looking for a new identity. If you want to be a better partner, you're looking for a new identity. Whatever it may be, you're looking for a new version of yourself. Now, if you spot the gap between your current identity and new identity, you might find that you lack either skills, you lack knowledge, or you lack experience, right? One of these three things. You either lack skills, experience, or knowledge. So if you're looking for these, there is a very large likelihood that whatever skills, knowledge, experience that you're looking for, there was a book that was written for it, right? So what you're really doing here is you're saying, okay, if I was to become, say, a better negotiator because I can negotiate my salaries and contracts, well, there's a book written for that. If you go, hey, I'd like to be more confident, well, confident is more like a state, a skill that you have. So you can go, okay, there's a book written for that. If you go, hey, I want to be a better coach, well, there's a book written for that. I want to build a better business, there's a book written for that. I want to be better at social media, there's a book written for that. There is a book or a program that was written for these specific skills, knowledge, experiences, or beingness that you need to create for yourself. And if you read that book, you take one step towards this new identity. See, this is what sequential learning does for you. This is why books are so vital. Books are so important because they create sequential learning for you. So you can go from who you are to who you want to be by simply reading a few books on the topic that is currently a gap for you. And so as you read those and hopefully implement what you read or listen to programs and hopefully implement those programs in your life, you move further towards your new identity. Books are phenomenal also because they provide context. A lot of the times when you listen to podcasts, you will find there's no context because it's hard to establish context in a short conversation. You may feel like an hour is a long conversation, Ajit, but the amount of things we cover in an hour, including myself when I'm on podcasts, it's a really wide range. 2 hours also is never enough to really cover what all we know and to establish context for every conversation. So a book allows you to have context, information, and then tools that you can use to be able to bridge this gap between your current self and your future self. So if you want to figure out what books to read next, find out the gap between your current and your future self and pick the books that allow you the education, the skills, the learning, the beingness of you being this new version of yourself. Which brings me to the eighth habit. Now, as you learned about the different skills or learnings that you need to do between your current self to bridge the gap between your current self and your future self, you will have to take some action. You'll have to do something about all this education that you're getting, all this learning that you're getting. And that sometimes is the biggest gap. The gap is not that you don't know what to do, but you end up not doing what you know you should be doing. And because of that, you also want to make a list of the actions that you're going to take to be able to create this new identity for yourself, this new version for yourself. If you don't know the actions that you need to take, it is more likely that you will learn everything and intellectually know everything and be able to really give a whole thesis about yourself, but not really do anything about yourself. How many of us, and I'm sure you can resonate with this because you are a coach, most likely as you watch this video, but there's a big possibility that as a person, even you have met enough friends who will tell you exactly what their problems are. They might even give you a story of how they came about to be the way they are. They might paint their parents. They might give you the exact circumstance, the exact event in their life that have made them that way. But they've done nothing to change it. They've done nothing to change it. Or even if they've done it and then they have kind of like weird off the path and they're the same person that they were before they had this information. What's the point of getting information that you don't take action towards? It's just data. Data that sits in your head, wastes your time, and gives you more anxiety. Is there even any point? Why do we subject ourselves to this psychological torture that doesn't actually allow us to create a new dimension, a new reality for ourselves? So, my invitation for you and for your clients and for your friends who seem to be torturing themselves every day is to ask, what are the actions that you're taking and are you taking them? Because without action, there is no real change that is created. So write down at least 3 actions, maybe 5 actions every single day that moves you towards your new identity, and then monitor it. See, did you do what you said you're going to do? Now, I want to introduce a secondary concept to it. See, when you build a new habit, what you're doing is you're breaking the barrier of comfort for a person. So if this is you, there's a comfort zone that you're in. This is where you are comfortable, right? So what tends to happen is when you break this barrier of comfort, you go into a discomfort or an uncomfortable zone, right? And as you go into the discomfort or the uncomfortable zone, what will happen is you will be able to do it for a little bit, let's say 7 days or 14 days or 30 days. What will happen at some point? Your mind, body, and soul will go, this is too hard. This is too difficult. This is too uncomfortable. I need to bring you back to safety. And it's a completely fair thing for your mind, body and soul to do, because their job is to protect you, right? If you have a defense mechanism about, hey, when I get anxious, I eat something, let's say hypothetically, if you have that defense mechanism, the first time you would try to switch to meditation when you're getting anxious or movement, what will happen is you might be able to do it for a couple of days and then your body will want to recalibrate. And that's okay. I want you to find acceptance in that. Here's the reason why. What has happened now is, while you may not have met your expectation of, I will work out every single time I feel anxious, what you've done is you are doing the eating less frequently, right? So what you've done is you've stretched your comfort zone a little bit more. It might not be meeting your expectation just yet, but your comfort zone is beyond what it was before, right? So you've gotten a little bit better. This understanding, this grace that you are a rubber band, the more you stretch, the longer you get, right? While you will snap back to your old state or similar to old state, you've gotten a little bit longer, you've got a little bit more grit in there, you've got a little bit more stretch in there. That understanding will allow you to be able to stay present to this journey and know that you will have to keep stretching. It's not a failure when you fall back to your old self and go, I need to, go on a binge of a pizza. It's okay. Give yourself grace. Try not to do it. Try to stop after the first slice. Try, but at the same point of time, if it happens, it happens. Did you try? If the answer is yes, keep trying, because new habits are not built overnight. Nothing really that is in your body right now, in your soul right now, in your mind right now was built overnight. It was built with years and years of programming. It may take months of programming for it to really be reprogrammed, or days, right? So invite yourself to a conversation where you give yourself grace for every single time you fall back, because the job is not to worry about that you fall back, but the job is to remind yourself that, oh, I fell right now, let me get back up, right? So that's what we want to do when we're building habits. Don't get so attached to the new habit that every single time you drop the habit or fail at the habit, you beat yourself up and you're back to your very, very old self, and and don't allow the stretch to happen. Be aware that it has happened and then correct and then get back on your feet. Which brings me to the ninth habit that I have, and that is known as the Batman effect. See, if you don't know about Batman, Batman is this comic book character that is Bruce Wayne in the day, and in the night he would wear a cape and a mask and he becomes Batman, the one that is saving Gotham City. In the day, he is a spoiled billionaire, right? And this Batman effect is actually wildly useful for all of us who are individuals who are supposed to show up a particular way every single day. See, some days I wake up in a bad mood. Some days I'm not feeling the best. Some days I don't have the best of days. But when the camera is on, when you are with me, if I'm at an event speaking or we are on a podcast or whatever it is, I don't cancel those things just because I'm not feeling good in that moment. What I do is I wear my hat and I go out and I am the coach that you're expecting me to be. So Batman effect is when sometimes you have a persona, a personality that turns on when you have certain kind of signs, signals to yourself that now it's game time. It's like Batman wearing the cowl, the suit, and then going out in the world and becoming Batman. To me, that's my hat. The reason why I wear this hat is irrespective of whatever's happening around me. When the hat's on, I'm not Ajit. I'm Coach Ajit. And Coach Ajit has a particular way of talking. Coach Ajit has a particular way of showing up. But Coach Ajit has a particular demeanor. Coach Ajit has a particular responsibility. And when I wear my hat, I am Coach Ajit. I cannot then act like somebody who is freaking out because of something that's going wrong in their life. I have a different persona that shows up because I assume that identity the moment the hat goes on. So, what is it that you can choose? It could be a particular dress, it could be a particular gear, it could be something that you wear, it could be something that you just tell yourself. It doesn't have to be even an attire. It totally depends on you, on how you snap yourself out of the state that you're in so you can show up with the most power that you need to in that moment. I have these tokens that allow me to get back into the moment. These are the things that I wear, and I immediately remind myself of what role I've decided to play in society and how I can show up in the best of ways the moment the role is on, right? So, my invitation for you is find your Batman effect, because there will be bad days. There will be bad times. There will be times when you don't want to show up and you would just really love a break. but you can't afford that when you're creating something that's meaningful in your life. You can't afford that when you're with your kids. You can't afford that if you still have to take care of your health and well being. Let the Batman effect affect your entire life. It's not only that the hat comes on when Coach Ajit is coming on. When I get back home, I have different mottos that as a parent I show up. When I'm with my partner, there's a different person and more elevated persona that my partner sees because I want her to know how much I love her. And all of these are triggered by different personas I have that I get to tap into as I'm showing up at different areas of my life. We all have different personas. I'm not asking you to be not vulnerable, but I'm asking you to be present to the idea of what's your role at that time in your life with people around you and with society at large so you can show up in congruence with the role that you're playing at that moment in society. And that brings me to the final habit that I practice, and it's one of those, again, controversial ones, and some of you might even think I'm a narcissist after this, and that is love yourself and tell yourself that you love yourself. See, one of the biggest changes I've had in my life in the past 4 or 5 years of my life, ever since I had my daughter, is my body is completely different. I look different. I feel different. My energy is different. The amount of energy that I have is different. And that change happened because of a very particular practice. This practice is called body talk. Body talk is where you look at yourself in the mirror and you tell different parts of your body how much you're grateful for them doing the function that they do. You look at your hands and you say, thank you. Because of you, I type, I cook, I play with my kids. I thank my shoulders because I can put my kids on my shoulders and walk for hours. I thank my legs because I move around in the world with my legs. So as you say thank you to different parts of your body, as you say different love yous to different parts of your body, what I found is that the more love I express to my body parts, the more my body loves me back. The more it's clear for my body to communicate to me what its needs are, what they need for nutrition, what it needs for movement, what it needs for different things. And because of that, my relationship with my body has gotten significantly better. What I also found is it's also true for anything else in my life, not just my body, but my heart, for my brain, for people around me. The more I appreciate myself, the more appreciation I have for life. The more I appreciate people around me, the more appreciation I have for my life. The more you appreciate, it appreciates. So I love my work. I love my body. I love my heart. I love my brain. I love my family. I love, I love, I love. And the more love I express, the more elevated my state be, the more love I have for myself and for people around me, the more I operate from a place of love. And because of that, I find that it's much easier for me to create because I'm never wondering about if it's good or bad. I'm just thinking, is it from love? And if it's from love, it's probably okay. It'll probably land in the way it needs to land for the people it needs to land for. And it allows me to do things that otherwise would be uncomfortable for me, like even doing this video or having this conversation with you about loving yourself and being at risk of being thought of as a narcissist idiot. I still will go, well, but still, it helps me. And I know it's coming from a place of love. And so hopefully it will land for you too. Now, I give you 10 habits, and some of these are difficult. They sound easy, but to implement them, to practice them, it can take a toll on a person. So I invite you that in the coming few weeks, try at least three, the three that resonated with you the most. In the comment section below, share with me what those three were and try them on. Try them on and see which one works, which one doesn't work for you. There is no one size that fits all. But there is one of these habits that has the potential to change your life. So my invitation to you is to go ahead and try it because when you try these habits, your life will change. And as your life will change, you will change the world.